3, dealing with cosmetic surgery.
28th of January.
And we dealt with the issue. Remember that Tzitz Eliezer was concerned that it's not really an illness. So that goes to the issue of Verapo Yerape, that physicians have been given a right to cure illness. But Tzitz Eliezer held that cosmetic surgery is not an illness. And therefore a physician has no right to be choivel somebody, to wound somebody. So that, yet we had, we brought a Rav Moshe, we learned that he permitted it.
Psychological. Psychological is an illness.
So, let's define illness. Not all poskim understand the prohibition of chavola in the same lenient manner that Rav Moshe did, because Rav Moshe said you could do this kind of cosmetic surgery. Nevertheless, other suggestions are offered by some rabbinic authorities to permit cosmetic surgeries in some cases. One direction used is to define one who is quote-unquote ill in a slightly more lenient manner, although we classically view only one with a physical injury as being in the category of a chola. What does that mean? It allows you to take medicine on Shabbos or to have invasive surgery. But Tosfos holds, there's a sugya there in Shabbos. It permits scratching oneself in a specific way to avoid pain, even though normally doing that is forbidden due to an isser of beged isha, wearing women's clothing, or performing acts normally done by women. So they scratch themselves in a certain way, which if you do an act that only women do, it falls under the category of an isser of beged isha. Now, if a person is embarrassed to walk around in public with such scratches visible, it's still permitted, as one who is embarrassed to the extent that they will not go around publicly is also considered to be in pain or suffering. So what they're going to say is that somebody who's got some kind of cosmetic deformity is in pain and suffering and puts them into a chola category. Let's see the Tosfos. It says, V'im ein lo tsar acher. He doesn't have any pain. Elishem is bayish leilech. If a person is embarrassed to walk bein bnei adam, shari, it's permitted. De'ein lecha tsar gadol mizeh. To be embarrassed about some kind of physical appearance issue is ein tsar gadol mizeh. Now, the Chelkas Yaakov was Rav Yaakov Breish, the Carniol family. My mother, as a Carniol, Rav Breish was part of the Carniol family. In fact, during World War II, all the mail of my family, the Carniol family, was sent to, because he lived in Zurich, Switzerland, which was a neutral country. After the war, they found, for example, my grandfather, Chanoch Carniol, had sent a postcard from Auschwitz. Wow. And they found a postcard in 18, wherever, the address in Zurich, and it was the Chelkas Yaakov, was Rabbi Breish. Rabbi Breish passed away like in late 60s, but his son continued as a posek in Zurich, and he just recently passed away, Rabbi Breish. And your brother-in-law knew Rabbi Breish, and he knew this one who just recently passed away. He was 90 years old when he passed away. So the Chelkas Yaakov was to Europe was what Rav Moshe Feinstein was to America. He was the posek in the mid-50s and 60s. All the medical shilas and any modern day halacha would come to Rabbi Breish. So the Chelkas Yaakov cites this passage together with another passage from Tosfos that indicates that a woman's physical appearance is an important factor in choosing wife. By the way, Rabbi Breish was also Hasidish, so for him to say such a thing is really an amazing thing. If so, he comments, a girl who is embarrassed at the shape of her nose and afraid she will not succeed in finding a shidduch may be considered as being in pain, and surgery to correct the problem would be permitted. So the Chelkas Yaakov and the Igros Moshe thus agree on the halachic ruling to permit it, but they disagree on the logic behind it.
What's wrong with the logic now?
It's not just he had a different svara to be matir.
I mean, even when Feinstein...
No, Rav Moshe agreed it, but he agreed for different reasons. We learned that last week.
What did you agree on? I mean, I thought
He said, Rav Moshe says, in the case where the injury is to beautify her, it is not in a matter of confrontation or degradation, so the prohibition is not relevant. He brought the Rambam that said, the only Isser Chavala is if you do it in a way where you're fighting somebody. But if you're not fighting somebody, so he didn't change and say that the person is sick. He just said that you're not over chavala because it's not done in a confrontational manner. The Chalkas Yaakov is now defining this woman as being sick. Rav Moshe didn't also agree that someone who's going for cosmetic surgery is not under the category of chola. That the Chalkas Yaakov is saying that such a person is a chola. He brings the proof from Tosfos that says that even having some kind of physical appearance, and you're embarrassed by it,
Right.
you'd be ein tsar godel mizeh. So it's a completely different reasoning as to why they permitted it. Let's say what he says. Bidvar she'elato, im muter lebtula, la'asot la'atzma nituach ala chotem. He says plastic operation, right? Is a young girl permitted to undergo a plastic operation liyasher ulahaktina, so to straighten it, to make it smaller, referring to her nose. V'oisin zois liyoifi, they do it to beautify her. B'chtei she'eh lakalim so shirach hagun, so she'll have a better shirach. V'tos v'shabes dibra maskul b'shil v'mein lo tsar acher. If there's no other pain except the person is mizbayish lelech b'nei adam shari, dein lechad tsar godol mizeh. There's no greater pain than that. He brings another Tosfos in Tainus. The gabi isha lo dayik alma el liyoifi. So there's a whole debate. Why do men go after women to get married? Is it because of yichus? Is it because of money? He says the bottom line is they go after physical beauty. Im kain benidon didan the istarti. So you have two rayas. The mistama hibusha im chodna. She's embarrassed because of her nose. Lelech ben chavusa to go among her society. B'nei sheisha miskanis b'yor chaverta. Women are jealous of each other. And the term that Gemara used is one woman is jealous of the thigh of her friend. Ukiyadu gam b'yoifi chaverta. I mean, someone, oh, you're skinny or you're not skinny or whatever. They knew that women did this kind of thing, and therefore there's embarrassment. So he says, "Im kain en lachat sargol mizeh. Im kain harelan halacha psuka. Do they tsar muter lachtoich af aver? So you can, remove a limb, olakiz dam, ve'ein b'zeh mishum oisach habura, and there's no inyan of chavala."
So breast implant, things like that, for your husband, whatever it is, you're allowed to.
Well, before you get married.
No, I'm asking, I know a religious family that the woman had a breast
Okay,
implantation.
but so
Is that bad?
well, let's say it's an inyan of what's it called,
Reduction.
shalom bias, right? Hakadosh Baruch Hu allows his name to be erased in manners of shalom bias, like by the sota. So if it's a shalom bias issue, but it's got to be a reason. Like here, they didn't just accept it. They said a single girl who thinks that she's gonna have a problem having a
Right, they
shidduch.
feel bad for
So
the
here,
single
here
girl,
this
but here's
woman,
a married
here this
woman.
woman's married already.
You might as well. See?
By the way, the proof that that men are focused on beauty, Tosfos states that a man searching for a marriage prospect will be more concerned about beauty and appearance than with social status. He uses the idea to explain the statement in the Gemara there that Eliezer, Avram's servant, stated improperly when searching a wife for Yitzchak that the first girl who responds to his request for water will be an appropriate match for Yitzchak, as perhaps she would be blind or lame. Tosfos suggests that more focus on those two traits rather than the chance that the girl would be a shifcha or a mamzeres. For example, maybe her yichus wouldn't be good, which are mentioned later in the Gemara in the context of a different case, because men searching for wives are more concerned with the physical beauty of the girl rather than her lineage. So that's a raya from the Gemara itself.
Doesn't talk about cosmetic surgery for men.
Good point.
Well, if it's a shidduch issue, let's say a guy had a big nose and he thinks he can't get a nice shidduch, it would follow the same svara. Why not?
Supposedly, we're only dealing with issues of shidduchim from a woman's point of view.
Okay, but l'chora, it could work the other way too.
Yeah, that's why
If there was
I'm
some,
asking that question.
if you had some really bad
Yeah.
physical deformity, I think it would follow the same gather. Now, what about sakana? Are you allowed to put yourself? I mean, when you undergo elective surgery, you're putting yourself in sakana. Are you allowed to do that? Right? Mentioned by the poskim with regard to this type of elective surgery is the element of sakana. In general, the Torah commands us not to place ourselves in danger. It says, "Rak hisharmer lecha ushmor nafshecha me'od." Based on this pasuk, Rav Moshe famously ruled that one should not smoke. Now, in the end, his tshuva says this is something that the public has grabbed onto, and sometimes you can't make a gzeira against something that the public would normally do. That's how prevalent smoking was in the 50s and 60s, where you couldn't, I would say today, that doesn't exist anymore. I'm talking about smoking.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just telling you today, plastic surgery is something that the oilam is hopped onto.
So Walter has a good, so we'll see whether, what Walter said is very, we'll see, he'll be quoted. So it says, "Petishkachas ad Moshe Roeinecha, ufen yashrim levavel kol yimei charecha." Then it says, "V'nishmartem od lenafshosechem." You've got to watch yourself very carefully. So we have two psukim in the Torah that warn us, we got to take care of ourselves. Like, for example, you go out in a thunderstorm not wearing the proper clothes, you've committed an aveira. You've subjected yourself to a risk of getting a flu or a cold, or being exposed to the elements, not properly dressed. You're over a lot. Okay? So we're not talking about smoking. Okay.
Yeah, but there's certain things today, like if you, the posting going on an airplane, driving in a car.
Today that's not considered sakana.
So,
'Cause
there's
it's all-
there's certain norms which the sakona,
Right, so, so,
is that your bill?
What is that, your phone?
no,
That's some sort of bell.
no, because I have the ring. It was not us.
Look who could it be?
Are we taping? Yeah, we're taping.
Maybe it's the back door.
Although the immediate context of this pasuk is about remembering the giving of the Torah, the Gemara in Brachos 32b also interpreted it as exhorting us to take care of our bodies. Therefore, the Shulchan Aruch writes, based on the Rambam, that one should not engage in any other dangerous activity for the same reason. So, v'chein kol michshol sheyesh bo sakonas nefashos. Flying in a helicopter, right?
Wow.
I knew it was coming.
Yeah.
Mitzvah saseh lasiro. It's a mitzvah to remove it. Uli shamer mimenu, lizar b'davar yafeh. Shenemar yishamer l'chor shmor nafshecha. V'imlo heisir v'niacha michsholos hamevim lidei sakona, bitel mitzvah saseh. Ve'oiver below sosim domim. You're mavatal naseh, and you're over alav. Harbe dvorim osru chachomim, they sheyesh b'em sakona nefashos. The Shulchan Aruch says, Chazal forbid many things. Kol oiver al dvarim elu, v'chayotzu behem, v'omar hareini mesakin ba'atzmi. He said, I'm going to do it anyways. U'malachim alai b'kach. Nobody else can stick himself into my business. Or any makbid b'kach. I'm going to ignore the risk. Makin oisoy makamardus. Chazal have the right to give him makas. And v'nizr mehem alav tavo bracha tov. So again, the Chelkas Yaakov, cited above, discusses the potential danger involved in anesthetic surgery, but nevertheless permits even elective surgery of this type, despite the potential danger. He explains that today surgery is very common and is usually successful. Therefore, he rules that it is in the category of cases known as Shomer Psoim Hashem.
I found this on the web for Near Comic Show some of the movies.
Someone said Siri.
Hashem protects the innocent, meaning that if it's a common practice done by many people, and there are usually not harmful, and there are not usually harmful consequences, it's halachically permitted, right? V'navol l'chashash habeis, kiva d'bechol nituch yechshash sakana v'asur lachnis atzmo sakana. What should we do about it? So he says, puk chazi, go look. My omar debar. What do the people do? V'achi sugin de'alma. Shanoshim rachmanu litzon oisim batzman nituach alivorim pnimim bedakin v'rein. First of all, he says, people undergo elective surgery on major limbs, on their lungs, on their intestines.
That's not elective, come on.
Bariatric surgery.
Or they
Bariatric
do surgery. Va'anu roim Baruch Hashem derov gadol misrapim bizeh. He says the vast majority get healed. Remember, the Chelkas Yaakov is writing in the 50s and 60s, right? Where it's not that
It doesn't say elective surgery, they just
no
do surgery.
nituach.
Yeah.
Okay, nituach. So he's saying that even major surgery people heal from. The kama cholim she'ein b'hem shum sakana. And even other illnesses where there's no sakana, rak efshar sakanas aver, there might be a limb risk, not a life risk, limb risk. There's different dinim if, for example, there's a risk to an aver versus a risk to your life, regarding on Shabbos. For example, pikuach aver, that doesn't necessarily, you can't violate Shabbos. Now, we've extended it today because if your limb is at risk, you could get gangrene, and that leads to pikuach definitely. So,
But let me ask you, every
Yes.
time you go under anesthesia, so the say that you take your charms when you.
Yeah, but it's 1 in 500,000. It's so rare today that
Yeah, but
he says it's not.
So the mathematics for all of this, the rarity has increased, so how do you
Yes.
work that?
Yes, he would. It's even better today, says the Chalkas Yaakov, that since the risk is much less, it would not. He says, the kachu minago shel olam. It's the minig today for people to undergo surgery. Kivan de dashu borabim shomer p'sam Hashem. Shomer p'sam Hashem means Hashem is going to watch over things, even though there's a minor risk. But if it's the vast majority, now, I don't know the risk of jumping out of a plane, with a parachute. But that might be considered too much of a sakana. I don't know what the stats regarding flying in a helicopter is. Maybe it is, but I don't know yet. But in general, I would think that that's probably also a very low risk. People fly in a helicopter all the time, like transfer between airports and things like that. Right. On the other hand, other poskim such as the Shevet HaLevi forbid such a procedure due to the potential danger involved from surgery.
Where was the Shevet HaLevi?
The Shevet HaLevi is Rav Wozner, lived in Bnei Brak, was the major posek for the Hasidic community for the last 20 years. He passed away maybe a couple of years ago. So,
That's a mistake, it says Vanzer, it's not Vanzer.
where do you see Vanzer?
Number 16.
It's
In the
Wozner,
bottom.
yeah.
Rav Wozner.
It's
Oh.
Vanzer.
Upashut, to kol nituach beprat al yedei hardama, hu begetter suffix sakana. He's dealing with the question of elective plastic surgery. He's saying every surgery requires going to sleep. Ve'eno chayiv afil b'makom mitzvah. You're not chayiv to undergo a risk even if there's a mitzvah involved. Umikol shekain letzorach noi. And certainly because of just beauty, okidei lovel l'dei zivug, or even if it's a shidduch.
No, if there's different levels of anesthesia.
Yes.
They do, right? There's someone, it's a general anesthesia, the one where
Conscious
they do
sedation.
Yes.
local, but they put you,
Yes, they
basically
give you
make
mild.
sleepy.
Yeah, so that's much safer. That really, he's not talking about that. So if you could undergo a very risk-free anesthetic, even Rav Wozner would not have a problem.
That's like colonoscopy.
Right.
Conscious sedation.
What about injury without bleeding? What about Botox? There may be another reason to permit some types of cosmetic surgery. The poskim says that one of the problems is chavala, wounding. And that may have been discussing invasive procedures, such as a full nose job, such as a rhinoplasty, where the physical shape of the nose is actually altered, which results in bleeding and bruising. However, there is less invasive types of cosmetic surgery, using injections like Botox, which does not cause bleeding or bruising. It's become very popular. What's the halacha concerning those types of procedures?
Who's writing this question?
No, these are so by the way, the perek on cosmetic surgery was written by, this entire shir was written exclusively for the English edition of Tzurba M Rabanan by the English editors. The editor, yeah.
That's popular in Israel.
They knew who
They knew who their
Yeah, the
audience is.
audience,
Exactly.
yeah.
So from the Shulchan Aruch and Hilchos Shabbos, it seems that the halachic definition of injury is limited to cases where bleeding or bruising is caused. So, Shmona Shrotzim Amurim B'Torah, we're talking about hunting them on Shabbos, Hatzodin Chayiv, if you hunt them, you're Chayiv, HaChoyvel B'hem, if you wound them, Av B'Shlo Yotzu Mehem Dam, Ela Nitzur Tachas, or even if it says bruising underneath the skin, Chayiv. Ushar Shrotzim Ein Chayiv HaChoyvel B'hem, Elam Ken Yotzu Mehem Dam. But the other Shrotzim, if you bruise them, you're not Chayiv. So based on this principle, some poskim cited by the Gesher Chaim argue that's entirely permissible for a son to give a father subcutaneous injection, even though it's forbidden for a son to injure a father to draw blood. Now, such an injection may not cause bleeding or bruising, and therefore does not qualify as chavala. Says the Gesher Chaim, al oifen azrikot, im ki b'tshuva choiche chagon. This is referring to Rav Tzich Pesach Frank, who was the major posek, when the time of the state of Israel was formed. Lachmir, Mashiikar irur shehu dover motzi, sheyotzi dama yedei azrikos. That even though people say when you do an injection, usually blood comes out, hine kozar shaykh b'mahut azrika nasis b'toch hagidim. That's if you do an intravenous injection. V'lo b'chol stam zrikos hanasis b'toch basar. For example, if you give somebody an injection into the muscle, you don't necessarily draw blood most of the time. So according to this approach, Botox injections, they're just injected subcutaneously into the skin. usually doesn't cause bruising at all, right? May be permissible according to many poskim. Perhaps not according to Tzitz Eliezer, because he claimed you're not a chola, and therefore the doctor has no right to treat the person. Right? Remember, that was the sheet of the Tzitz Eliezer. We will conclude by pointing out that although we have seen many poskim do permit cosmetic surgery in many cases, every actual scenario must be evaluated individually. Some types are more problematic than others. In addition, even those poskim would take a lenient approach, like those who follow Rav Moshe or Chalkas Yaakov, may forbid it in cases where it is sensed that the person asking the question does not truly need it. This is what Jerry was asking about. Or that there are other psychological issues at play. On the other hand, it is possible that even those who take a stringent position, like the Tzitz Eliezer, the Rav Wosner, may allow it in specific cases where they feel that the need is great enough, or if the surgery is necessary due to deformity caused by accident. So a person who finds himself or herself in such a situation should always, consult a halachic posek.
The truth is, in today's world, women doing cosmetic surgery are not doing it because they're worried about making a shidduch or keeping a shidduch, but they're trying to beautify themselves for their own well-being.
Or for their husband.
Not just for themselves.
For themselves.
I'm not sure that would, but I'm not sure that the poskim would
qualify.
accept that.
No,
Now,
I
if the
understand
person,
that, but I'm
right.
just questioning the motive in which it's permissible according to poskim.
So if a person is depressed, and depression, it could be, if it's a severe depression, so they would take, that's I think what they were referring to, they would take each case in consideration depending on the severity. Certainly cleft palate, cleft lip,
Well,
it's functional and all that, you would think that the poskim would permit this. Okay, very good. Now we're gonna move to the next chapter, artificial insemination and in vitro fertilization in halacha, which is called hazra'ah malachutit, hazra'ah, like putting the zera in a sort of a machine way, like, artificial way. And hafriyah chutz gufit, right? It's outside of the body fertilizing. What's the din in halacha? Now, so we're on page 85. So in the previous year on cosmetic surgery, we began by addressing the issue of whether the halachic permission for a doctor to heal, right, rapo yirape, extends as well to elective medical procedures where the patient does not suffer from an actual illness. This question is as relevant concerning artificial insemination and vitro fertilization. Not being able to have children, you're not considered ill. You're not a chola. So is a doctor permitted to intervene? In way of background, artificial insemination or intrauterine insemination is the term used to refer to taking sperm from a male, inserting it directly into the fallopian tubes of the female, or it's usually done right into the uterus, in order to cause fertilization of the egg inside the body. On the other hand, in vitro fertilization is the artificial fertilization of an egg and sperm that takes place in the laboratory after they've been extracted from the male and female. A few days after the egg is fertilized, there's now a newly formed embryo. Remember, a human cell has 46 chromosomes. It's actually pairs of chromosomes because you get one strand from the father, one strand from the mother. But the sex cells, so for example, when our skin is constantly shedding, we're always making new skin. So our skin cells undergo a process called mitosis, where they divide, but they divide with 46. So they create a new cell with 46 chromosomes. Okay, but in the ovary and in the testis, another process called meiosis happens, where the 46 chromosomes are divided into two, 23 and 23. You don't have pairs, you only have the single strand. So then, when the egg and the sperm come together, you'll have a full 46 chromosome, one cell. And then that cell divides, and then divides again. So you have 4 cells, then 8 cells, then 16 cells, then 32 cells. That's the embryo. But it's not just this, the embryo, this is actually monitored under the microscope. It forms a little ball. There's already formation. You can tell where's the head and where's the end, and because there's differentiation already at that stage. You're talking about 2-3 days of the embryo, and then they take the embryo and they implant it into the uterus. And then if it sticks, it only works 30% of the time. In vitro fertilization is not successful 100% of the time. That's why, first of all, that's why they have to implant multiple embryos. And that's the problem why sometimes if you have triplet, you hear triplets, quadruplets, because they've had to implant multiple embryo because they don't want to have to do it and fail. So they'll implant two, or whatever, but then there's a risk of twins. So that's why in the era of in vitro fertilization, we see many more multiple births because of it.
I think in Israel, 10 to 15% of all births are in vitro.
And I would say in America,
10 to 15%.
I would say that statistic is the
it's
same in
It's
America.
very high.
I'll tell you why we say
Maybe
this.
even higher.
Today,
Let's speak as a higher.
Okay.
We had the Shimon
Bef-
side.
20 years ago, or 24, I've been a urologist for 33 years. It's the incidence of infertility is about 10% of all married couples. And the etiology is usually 50% male factor, 50% female factor. It means 50% of the time it's a problem for the female, and it's 10%. So now the problem is, 30 years ago, we didn't have that many treatments to allow fertility to occur. So for example, in a male, one of the major issues is something called a varicocele. On the left side, you'd have a dilated vein that drains the testicle. It leads the testicle to be hotter than it should be. Like, for example, if you sit in a jacuzzi, it lowers your sperm count. If you do, so one of the treatments, you avoid that. But we used to operate on a varicocele, tie the veins off, and it would increase the sperm count, and they'd be able to have some of those men would be able to have children. But the number of people that we really helped was very low. So now that you say that the rate of, let's say in America or in Israel, of in vitro fertilization is 10%, that's because 10% of all couples can't have children in the normal way. And we can, do you know that there's now, there is a disorder called Klinefelter syndrome, XXY. Most men are XY, most women are XX. So there's a syndrome XXY. It's like Down syndrome, trisomy 21. But this is XXY. It's a different type of chromosome abnormality, Klinefelter's. No, they're all unicoid. That means they're tall, they have a very long neck, their testicles are extremely small. And when the Gemara talks about an islandness, like they turn 18 or 20 and you don't see any sexual characteristics, I'm sure it was referring to a Klinefelter syndrome. That's who they were. And traditionally, if you did a semen analysis on them, they had no sperm whatsoever. But today, you can do a testicular biopsy, and with a microscope in the operating room, you can find 1 or 2 sperm. Now remember, when most men ejaculate, they ejaculate 30 to 60 million sperm per ml, and if it's average 2 to 3 ml, you're talking about 200 million sperm are being ejaculated. So a low sperm count is 10 million, okay? Because per ml. Normally it should be 40 million ml. So the Klinefelter has 0. But if you look in the testicle, sometimes you can find 1 sperm. You can take that 1 sperm with a pipette and do a thing called ICSI, intracytoplasmic sperm injection into the egg, and Klinefelter syndrome patients are also having children today. So basically, all cases, now, there are some men where they have no sperm whatsoever. None. And they do a testicular biopsy, you can't find any. So here we're going to see their only option is to accept sperm from a sperm bank. Most usually the post can say from a non-Jew. Yeah, the couple will, because the man has no. That's why, if you remember, Tzvika and I flew to Israel. We spoke about testicular transplantation because there is a case of someone who a brother donated his testicle to his brother because they were genetically identical. But that's extremely rare. It happened once, and it's not really shocking for the average person. Now, what is the permissibility of accepting a sperm bank donation? We will see learning this sugya a little bit as well. But in general today, either artificial insemination or, because remember, artificial insemination is much less expensive than in vitro fertilization. So usually there'll be an attempt at artificial insemination before there'll be as long as the man has sperm. Sometimes there are factors that don't allow the sperm to swim properly. There's cervical mucus that prevent them from going in. So if you put the sperm directly into the uterus, it's easier time to conceive. So they'll always do that, mainly for cost reasons, before going to IVF. Now,
I was with Tzvika in Israel, like the guy, probably you had Feldman, that guy.
yes,
And he has all the Hasidic people who can't have children, he does this with them.
right.
They take them to a hotel, they give them a rubber,
Right. And by the way, 10, 15 years, Tzvika and I have been learning these sugyas for 20 years. And Rav Moshe was always much more lenient. So because of the problem with mamzerus, because Rav Moshe said that if you take the sperm, not from the husband, let's say the husband didn't have sperm, he permitted that. He said it's not mamzerus because there's no bia going on, there's no relations going on. It's happening in the test tube. Rav Yoelish Teitelbaum, the Satmar Rebbe, felt that there was mamzerus, even since you're using foreign sperm, even though it's in a laboratory, it's not through relations, he considered mamzerus. So the yeshiva world that pretty much followed Rav Moshe, they had heterim to do these kind of procedures. The Hasidic world that very much followed the Satmar Rebbe would not. So we would get phone calls in the Sunday afternoon when we learned together from Hasidic, crying, we're going to, and that, so Pua, once these organizations got more involved, and they slowly, you saw the halachic poskim within the Hasidic world change and become more lenient. It's amazing, it doesn't usually happen. Usually there's a psak and it doesn't change, but this did change, and therefore the Hasidic couples also benefit from these things. If you go to the Bonei Olam, the guy who runs that is a Hasidic Jew. But it was much more difficult to get psak to be matir those things in that world. But today they do. Now, cases such as these do not appear at first glance.
What is the percentage?
It's very
For
high.
artificial insemination, what is the percentage of people
No,
actually?
I said each implant, when you do an in vitro fertilization, there's only 30% success. But that's why they'll put more than one, or they'll do it again another time. So it goes up. Yeah, but it's very expensive. It might be $10,000 to $15,000 per in vitro event. Yeah, and many insurances don't cover it, so it's really out of pocket, the cost. Now, cases such as these do not appear at first glance to be ones where the couple is ill, as both the husband and wife usually function completely normally on a daily basis. Nonetheless, we saw in the previous year that the Tzitz Eliezer disputed the Shari Tzedek and permitted them while forbidding cosmetic surgery. That means the Tzitz Eliezer, if you remember, forbade cosmetic surgery, but he permitted in vitro fertilization. The question is why? So in the Tzitz Eliezer, he said, "Hinei ra'iti b'sefer shut Shari Tzedek." He's quoting another more machmir posek. Ula aniu daiti, my humble opinion, kol masha nitna Torah reshus l'rapois, that which the doctors were given permission to heal, hainu kol choyli v'chol maka asher nitav achakach shlo inodakach rak b'tivo b'zeh yelech etz rof l'raposa. That means, in order to go to a doctor, you have to have an illness or a wound. You were born with a big nose, mileda, or you were born infertile, mileda. There's no illness, there's no pain. That means this question was asked, this Shari Tzedek was asked about a fertility question.
Yeah.
So he's saying, this, you don't have any illness, you don't have any pain, you're not sick, no necklace of klal. The normal and we should tell the doctor to cure her so she can give birth. Lo yadati minayna raglayim lahatya kazos midin toira ad kam l'shon.
Maybe that's the hardest.
So the Shari Tzedek said, I don't see where we can matir the doctor to intervene from the din of rapor l'rapor. Remember, we just assume like a doctor can do anything, but you see, halacha doesn't allow it. Right. The doctor has to have permission to be merapeh. He held that being infertile was not considered an illness, and the doctor has no right to intervene, and she has no right to subject herself to treatment.
He says choyli or ka'ev.
Right?
It's a ka'ev. They're talking about a woman has probably tortured herself that she can
Okay,
actually.
but this is okay. The
not
Shari
just a
you're
case,
talking
it's
about,
gonna be a
the
physical
Shari Tzedek is talking about 100 years ago. The Tzitz Eliezer is quoting him. He's an old. So right now we'll see how the halacha develop. We're talking about a physical pain. These people are otherwise well. So says the Tzitz Eliezer, Ulam im kinidon shel Shari Tzedek pashut lahatir kefi minagad shel Israel bazeh. So the Tzitz Eliezer already says that it's minag pashut that we are matir fertility treatments. Aval yesh ledati hashlachot lechidushu. He like this chiddush of the issue, because that's based on that Shari Tzedek, he does not permit cosmetic surgery. Zeh benogel niduchim plastim. Shemvatzim ka'et harofim etzel harbei bnei adam, that the doctors recommend to many people, l'shem yoifi, evreim, their limbs, bein shumach loke, even though they're not sick. V'yeshmokim godel l'taina zo shlo kagon dahu shenit netor rishus l'roken rapes. And the Tzitz Eliezer is agreeing that in that case, the doctor doesn't have the right to treat them. Vein reshut l'bnei adam latet l'rofim l'chavel b'atzmam l'shem matrazot. V'gam ein reshut l'voz l'batzezot. You shouldn't give advice for that. V'yesh l'dad lamin ki ein tzar kelokenu. There was no designer like our God. We use Baruch Shmo Tzad, Tzar v'yidbila kol echa v'echa mitzur v'tzamo k'dmuso lemeslo. However you're created, that's how you're created. Va'alav ein lo osif ben l'gro. So this was the Tzitz Eliezer response to cosmetic surgery. Now, why does Rav Waldenberg fundamentally allow assisted reproduction, as do most other poskim, but forbid cosmetic surgery? What's the difference? Perhaps precedent for a permissive stance on engaging in assisted reproduction can be found in the Gemara in Sanhedrin, where it states that the Amoram apparently were able to create some form of living being. Omer Rava, Ibaut tzadiki baro alma. If tzadikim want to create the world, they can. Shenemar, ki avonosechem hayu mivdalim. Really, we're like Hashem, but because of our avonos, we have been separated from sort of what He does. That means Madach Hashem creates living things, we can create living things too. And the Gemara says, as an example, Rava bara gavra. Rava, through Sefer HaYetzirah, he made a golem. He created a person. Shadri l'kamed Rav Zera. And he sent this person to Rav Zera. Have makom ishtoi ba'adei. V'lava kamadar lei. Rav Zera would speak to him, and the golem didn't answer him. Amar lei min chavrei at hodr la'afrech. So Rav Zera understood that because he didn't talk, it must have been one of the chaverim who created him. So he said, "Return to your dust," right? Rav Chanina v'Rav Oshe have yasvi kol mali shabta v'aski b'sefer Yetzirah. Rav Chanina and Rav Oshe would meet erev Shabbos, and they would learn Sefer Yetzirah. Umivru luhu iglu tilsa. They created a fatted calf, v'achlilei, and they ate it, as a special, pre-Shabbos meal. So, evidently, Chazal were not opposed to humans playing a major role creating life. The Meiri, who was an early Rishon, we just didn't have the Meiri until the Geniza was discovered about 100 years ago, but the Meiri wrote in 1200, 1300, expands on this. It says that there is no problem with witchcraft or any other prohibition in humans creating living creatures. And he acknowledges that this is scientifically possible as well. V'chol ma'aser shedim, harei b'chlal kshafim, kol shu nasa b'pu'ula tivit, eino b'chlal kshafim. If something's done in a natural way, then it's not using witchcraft. Afilu yodu livro brios yofos, shlomi zugamin. Somebody can create some creatures that are not from that species. He says, science books talk about this.
Two babies.
Yeah, but he's talking 1,000 years ago. So the Meir gives us a principle. Anything that can be done through a scientific approach
that's okay.
is not kishuf. The donos is sheyesh bo mishum refuah, ein bo mishum darkei amori. Similarly, even though the doctors do certain practices, and remember, the Darkei Amoiri would slash them. So there's a very you can't do like the Darkei Amoiri. But if it's L'Shem Refuah, it's not considered Darkei Amoiri. So IVF or artificial insemination may differ from cosmetic surgery in that with regard to cosmetic surgery, one is changing an already existing appearance formed by God, which is problematic in his opinion. Remember, he said, there's no greater designer than God. If he created you like this, there's a reason for it. While here, one is helping to create a living being from scratch, which is more similar to the case of the Gemara Sanhedrin that we just quoted. Given the fact that such procedures enable couples to have children, which is certainly looked upon positively by the Torah, when they otherwise could not, it's not surprising that nearly all rabbinic authorities do not forbid the procedure for philosophic reasons. However, as we will see, some poskim limit the allowance of fertility procedures to limited situations due to specific halachic concerns. Now, one of the main issues addressed by the commentaries in poskim with regard to assisted reproduction is the father considered the halachic father or not? Is he considered to have the same halachic relationship with the child, even though no actual marital relations took place? Has the father fulfilled the mitzvah of pru'urvu in this manner? If Chazal were certainly unfamiliar with any modern procedures of IVF, there's a possible parallel to our case within the halachic literature that sheds light on our question. The Gemara in Chagiga discusses an unusual question concerning the laws of a Kohen Gadol marrying a single girl. Now, a Kohen Gadol, a regular Kohen can marry an almana. A Kohen Gadol has to marry a besula. So it can't marry an almana. Now, from the answer of the Gemara, it seems that Chazal believed in the possibility of what could be called bathhouse insemination, whereby sperm from a male who had bathed in the bathhouse and ejaculated in the bath, later enters the body of a woman who bathes there, causing her to conceive.
The Tzurba is impossible, right?
Huh?
Well, they don't change the law.
Who said it is impossible?
You said it.
Well, let's just say that it's very unlikely. Shalu has ben Zoma, Besula she'ibra ma'ala kohen gadol. So you have a Besula, virginal conception.
It happened before, I think, if I
Immaculate.
remember correctly.
Immaculate conception.
So you have a Besula who's never had relations, or let's say she still has her hymen and she's pregnant. So the question is, can she marry kohen gadol? So Michai Shir Shmuel, the Amar Shmuel Yochel ani livo kama be'ilos belodam. So Shmuel was like an expert. He could have relations and somehow do it in a way that the hymen would be preserved.
Was he Korean? He was Korean.
Okay. So if she was a be'ula, so if we are choishes for Shmuel, then the Kohen Gadol would not be allowed to marry her. O dilma de Shmuel lo shchicha. Or this being able to be like Shmuel is not shchiach, and maybe it is permitted because she's really not. And the question is, how did she get pregnant? So Armelahu de Shmuel lo shchiach, but chayshinan shema bambati ibra, that maybe she got pregnant sitting in a bathtub. Now, the Chelkas Machokek, who was a major in Even HaEzer, which we're going to learn Mirz Hashem in the few years as the Tzurba M Rabanan get there. That's all the dinim of Noshim and marriage and Tzurba and Kiddushin. Right? So the Chelkas Machokek and the Beis Shmuel are the two major commentaries on the Even HaEzer. Chelkas Machokek believed that such an occurrence was possible and speculates as to whether the father of a child born through bathhouse insemination would actually be considered the halachic father, despite not having normal intercourse, and fulfill the mitzvah of pru'urvu. Says the Chelkas, so the Chelkas Machokek wrote, you're talking about in the 1600s, okay? Yesh listapek, isha shenis abra bambati, a woman who became pregnant in the bath, im kaima av pru'urvu. So number one,
Is it medically possible?
Very unlikely.
it's unlikely, but it's not impossible. It's not. It's if the Gemara says
Ask the doctor.
it's got to listen.
Have you ever seen it?
How long
Have you ever
can
heard
I-
about it?
Listen.
Have you ever read it in medical literature?
When men ejaculate 200 million sperm into their
That's what was
wives,
left was left there for some-
so how often do they get pregnant? That means even right. So that's
How
placed.
long do they live outside?
And then
the
no, and
house?
that's placed.
That's exactly.
No, and so even then the incidence of pregnancy there's a certain rate,
So minimal.
1 in 5 or whatever it is. So it's very unlikely. There's another rye before we reject it as impossible. Let's go further. So so number one, if the woman does get pregnant, let's say hypothetically,
Yeah, but
is a
that's
Makai
her
improvement?
word, that's her word. You understand what you were the coin there. That's her word. That must have been from the back. Maybe she had relations with someone, but she
No.
didn't tell the coin
What do you mean
Gadol.
choshed?
She didn't tell the coin
No,
Gadol
but we
about
have
it.
But she has
no. In husband, let's say if it's your husband. So we have Rov Be'ilos Achar Habal, and there, for example, let's say the woman took a bath, right, and the husband did and then let's say she got pregnant from that, and let's say they do a DNA test and they find that it's from the father. The question is, here the theoretical question is, without bia, without the physical act, are you Makayim Pru'urvu? they want to use this Gemara to answer our question. Since the in vitro fertilization was not done through Bia, that might be, if we say that this creates fatherhood, then that case will create fatherhood. We're just trying to look for a halachic precedent to be able to answer the question that we have. So the questions he does, are you a kind pruvu? Im mikro b'no l'chol davar, is he called his son? What does that mean? That means if the father's a kohen, is the son a kohen? Number two, does he have to be mechabe da'av? If he strikes the father, does he get misa? Does he inherit his father? Now, so the Maril, uvelukute Maril, nimsa, listen to this, sheben sira, haya bno shel Yirmiyah, sherochatz bambati, ki sira b'gematra Yirmiyahu. So, our Tanakh was concluded with Divrei Hayomim, right? You have Ezra and Nehemiah, and then Divrei Hayomim, and then our Tanakh was closed. It was canonized, and this is our Tanakh. But there were other Sfarim, that's called the Apocrypha, that were left over. For example, you have Sefer Maccabim, 1, 2, and 3. Okay? You have Sefer Ben Sira. Ben Sira has been dated to about 200 BCE, which is wisdom literature. By the way, the Christians have taken a lot of these apocryphal books and have included them in their canon. The book of Judith, the book of Enoch, Enoch, Chanoch. No. You know, we have the Chanoch ki enenu ki lakach oto Elokim. That's Chanoch. Well, there's a Sefer Enoch, Chanoch. These are wisdom literature, and the New Testament included some, and they're also, it's not in the New Testament, but it's apocryphal. Now, Ben Sira is quoted in Talmud Bavli in a number of places in Shas, where they bring some statements of Ben Sira. So what we're being told is Ben Sira was created by Yirmiyahu Navi as his father, because Ben Sira in Gematria is Yirmiyahu. So it's a very cryptic comment, and it refers to a passage of Lekutei Maril, and let's examine the passage. Omar de Ben Sira hu anoiled mizer Yirmiyahu. It has been said that Ben Sira was created through this sperm of Yirmiyahu. Listen to this. The Bas Yirmiyahu, Yirmiyahu's daughter, took a bath after her father took a bath. The Kalta Zeravia, and the Zera went into her. Vinis Abra she became pregnant, she gave birth. Bakol Me'idna Lea, Me'rev Chasidusa, and everyone gave testimony because of Shelo Zinsa, Jerry, that she did not have relations with anybody. Achiskimu Akol, Shebembati Sharachza Kalta, that she got pregnant through this bath. V'hoyel denoiled miklita zera below tashmish, karu ben zera. So he was actually called Ben Zera. No, his name was Ben Zera, the son of a Zera. Ukeshiyigdav v'nisyadalo hayabosh mishma. He was embarrassed from his name. Havchu shmo likro Ben Sira because begimatria Yirmiyahu. So according to Lekutei Maril, Ben Sira, who authored Ben Sira, right, was in fact the son of Yirmiyahu, and was apparently born through this bathhouse insemination. The Chelkas Mechokek thus proves from this story that since Yirmiyahu is considered the father of Ben Sira, the father is the halachic father, and has fulfilled the mitzvah of Peruvu. Okay. Now, it's interesting.
Yeah, but it's
interesting. Yirmiyahu was a Kohen.
Yeah.
I wish they would have said that Ben Sira is also a Kohen, but they didn't. But it should work the same way. So if this source is accepted as halacha, it would seem to serve as a strong precedent for claiming that in artificial insemination or IVF,
If it's the
the father is considered to be the halachic father as well, like in the case of insemination in the bathhouse. The fertilization of an embryo does not take place through normal intercourse.
So the father was a grandfather also.
That's according to the opinion that was the daughter. There's another opinion that was his wife. Let's see in a minute. The comment of the Chelkas Mechokek and Lekutei Maril is indeed cited and accepted by many Achronim. The Tashbetz, the Emek Halacha, the Pachad Yitzchak, who wrote an encyclopedia in the end of the 1800s, early 1900s on halacha. So, including the Marsham, who applies it to an inquiry about an early case of artificial insemination. Nish'alti bedavar, echad shadarm ishto yoser me'asar shanim ve'en labanim. He was asked about a man who was living with his wife for 10 years, they had no children. V'amar roifei echad mumcha gadol. Now, there were already doctors dealing with this in the late 1700s, 1800s. You know, in Vienna, Berlin, that was the major places where there was going on. So these, our poskim would have access to these issues. They would put the in a tube the father's semen. She would put it directly into the uterus of the woman. A tube. So this advice was given. The Marsham says he was told that because the cervix was so tight that the sperm wouldn't go in. Imuter lasos came. Is it permitted to do this? Now, if he says, we also found Sefer Ben Sira, ki imo nisabra mishchva zera shel Yirmiyahu bambati. Notice he doesn't say the daughter; it says the mother. Right? It was his mother. It was his wife. Ben Sira b'gematria Yirmiyahu. V'chacham echad ormerli shara b'Sefer Ben Sira or b'Sefer Acher ki amayis ayah she'onsus Yirmiyahu b'Yosef bambati. He was tortured in the bath. Uvaonas yatzazaro. And the sperm didn't come out because he ejaculated. He came out because he was being tortured. V'nitztar me'od. He was very upset, Yirmiyahu, and he fasted. Ve'erlo min hashamayim she'ishta rachza achar kach bambati. They showed him from, like in a dream, I guess, from Shamayim, that his wife had bathed there. V'kalta zev nisabra v'lidas ben sira. V'chizaro lo yotza levatola. Why was he misana? Because of the isser of yotza zer levatola. But he didn't have a problem because it was oinus. So the Marsham wants to say, based on this story of Ben Sira, we can permit artificial insemination. This is before in vitro. This was a few hundred years ago, where they were already starting to do this.
Yeah, but we know in artificial insemination, we know it's the husband, no matter what.
But there was no relations. So they want to say, to have pruervu, to be considered the father, you need to have physical relations with your wife. So now, since Yirmiyahu was called the father, and there was no relations, we have proof that you could be called the father even through some kind of technical insemination.
Is she so tight? Did she go through the procedure did she drink anything, you think, the wife?
No.
He didn't force her?
The Gemara
So,
says
I mean,
he was shown in a dream that she became pregnant through the bath.
It's his wife.
Yeah. Monkey business going
On the other
on.
hand, the Mishnah Lamelech
Ron's been reading too many Gemara.
take issue with this whole story and question whether this type of bathhouse insemination is truly possible. He doesn't believe this. So this is a concept like this. The Gemara has in Yevomis. You have two intercourse. So ha'ara is just the initial insertion of the tip, and Gemar Bia is complete. So the Gemara understands you can only get pregnant through Gemar Bia, through a full penetration. So if only a full penetration can make you pregnant, then what's this going on here? There's no penetration at all, right? V'imkein ech yitachen shetisaber bati elavari nira desvira lei demitziut shetisaber bati lo yitachen. He says it b'pemole. He says it can't happen. So the Mishnah Melech derives from the Gemara. That conception is only possible through a complete act of conjugal relations. And since this is lacking in our situation under discussion, one cannot draw any halachic conclusions from such story. The Tzitz Eliezer are other questions, whether one may draw any halachic conclusions from such stories, as to the status of a child. The Tzitz Eliezer has very good wording. Ve'agadal bi al Ben Sira, this story about Ben Sira, kishla'atzma mufakekesi, gam kinad me'od. It's highly questionable. Yet, many Gedolim mention the story. I can't really see that we can establish a halacha psuka because of kind of a story like this. To come to be able to say with certainty that you can ask me a question, there's artificial insemination, is this going to be the father, etc., etc., I can't answer it. He quotes the Ramban, B'Sifra Melchemes Chover, Shemuvim B'Shus Chatam Sofer, that the Chassam Sofer quoted, Shekosev Klal, listen like this, Shekol Mashalo Nimtza B'Shaz Bavli V'Yushalmi and Rishayim, Ein Adam Mechuyev Lamino Ayin Sham. something that hasn't been said in either Shas Bavli or Yerushalmi, or the standard Midrashim, Medrash Rabbo, Sifri, Sifra, Tanaitic literature. You have no. This is some Ben Sira. This is the Maharil quoted it. It's not from Shas Bavli and Yerushalmi. So umedina to be kol shekain de lilmod mehem halacha, and you certainly can't put halacha from it. So practically, most contemporary poskim have taken the position that the father is halachically considered the father in all aspects,
Are the father.
even where no intercourse has taken place. One of these poskim is Rav Yitzchak Yaakov Weiss, the Dayan Weiss. He was the Av Bezdin of the Eida Charedis in Yerushalayim, who writes in the Minchas Yitzchak that one has fulfilled Pru'urvu in this case. It's not just that, right? He explains that our scenario today is different than that of the bathhouse, as there is no active effort was made to cause the conception and birth. She took the bath. She didn't even know she was going to get pregnant. There was no effort there. Here, the husband and wife have exerted tremendous effort to have a child. This certainly allows for the fulfillment of the mitzvah pruvu, right? Uvnogel and nididon hagimel. So the third question that we asked, im kaim zeh mitzvah pruvu, shekvar chakru b'zeh gdolei achronim bin nisaber bambati. Right? There was a whole discussion about that the achronim dealt with, that if there's this pregnancy in the bathhouse, is there pruvu or not? Umashnogel and nididon didan, which is artificial insemination. Shaper kas v'achronim lechalek. There's a reason to say this case is better. Sheyesh loymar shekayim lekule alma mitzvah pruvu. Delonis abramela. This just happened. The conclusion spelled out by the Sefer Pua, a series of volumes published by Machon Pua, an organization based in Jerusalem dealing with issues of infertility halacha, which states as follows: La halacha, Ladas Rova Poskim, Ben Anolid Mazram Lachutit, a son born from artificial insemination, Nechshav Gibno Shabal Azer L'chol Dover.
Yeah, well, how do you know the
He's
father's
considered-
zera? How do you know it's the father's zera?
We took the father's zera.
We did take it,
In
but
this
just
case.
not give it to a
He's
bank.
saying,
No, it's not a bank. This
he's
is,
saying, we've been dealing with a case where we know this is the father's zera. But we said there's a dispute whether or not, if you use artificial means, not physical intercourse, whether you're considered the father or not. So those people who believe the story of the Ambati, they have a proof from there that since Yirmiyahu is called the father, so even though Yirmiyahu didn't have relations with his wife, if you have a child through that mechanism, you're still considered the father. The Tzitz Eliezer and the Mishnah Lamelech don't accept the story of the Ambati. Without the story of the Ambati, you have no connection between this artificial means, not having intercourse, and whether you're the father or not. However, they're now summarizing, like the Minchas Yitzchak wrote, as well as most of the other poskim, that most poskim consider he is considered the father, even though they became pregnant not through intercourse. You with me so far?
Yeah, right, I got it right.
Okay.
But I'm saying, I'm sorry. Are you allowed to have artificial insemination that is not your husband's?
No, we're not dealing with that.
No, I'm asking, are you allowed to? No, in Jewish halacha, no.
We're going to see that. I'm not-
Sperm banks.
In
The
those,
sperm bank, what would
if
be-
the father has no ability, because there's no sperm whatsoever, we will discuss whether sperm banks are allowed. There are poskim that will allow it from a non-Jew. There are other poskim that will not allow it. Okay, but
So
we're
in
talking
this
about the
case,
zera
husband
from the
is
father.
woman that couldn't get pregnant, not the husband.
No.
The husband has his sperm,
Jerry.
it was put into the woman.
Jerry, in many
Carry away with yourself.
Jerry, in many cases, husband has normal sperm, the mother has normal egg,
Yes.
but through normal relations, they can't have children, because the cervical mucus is not enough. So they'll only be able to have a child if the semen is put directly into the uterus with a tube.
Okay.
Ready? I'd like to say Kaddish.
Absolutely. It's Kaddish.
Amen.